The opposite of a fact is a falsehood, but the opposite of a profound truth may very well be another profound truth. That's a quote from Niels Bohr, and I've said it in a previous video. He's a Danish Nobel Prize-winning physicist. And if you've sat in class with me, you have heard this speech. Feel free to skip it or to hang around until I talk about Japanese whiskey. Roy Williams said, "The hard choices in life are never between right and wrong or good and bad, unless you have an addiction or you have problems. The hard choices in life are between two good things." So often you find that you will be attracted to a specific profound truth. And then you'll find people on the other side of you that feel like a conflicting worldview. And then you hear their version and you realize not that I'm right and they're wrong, but that that's also a thing that I believe. That's also a thing that I think is important. What do you do with that? So, for example, and I've talked about this before, justice and mercy, honesty and loyalty is another one, and a really powerful one, freedom and responsibility. These are both true things, both profound. Freedom is profound. The freedom to choose what you want to do and say what you want to say without repercussions and without someone knocking on your door and arresting you, and to have a voice and to choose your career path and who you will love and who you will spend your life with. On the other hand, the responsibility that is given to take care of the least of these and to be careful about the words that you use, because words have impact and that's real. And these are all things that are in conflict with each other, but which is the right one, freedom or responsibility? Exactly. This is really powerful in my brain right now because I've had some experiences in the last couple of weeks where I've realized, been reminded that I have a platform and a voice, and the things that I say impact human beings. And on one hand, my brain is saying, touch. I want to live my life. I have thoughts I want to share. I have things that I truly believe, some very passionately. But on the other hand, I see what happens in the world when I say, here's what I think, and it negatively impacts certain people or certain categories. Now, I choose to believe that the most powerful part of life is to live in the middle of those things and the tension that it creates, as opposed to picking one or the other. I'm going to explore that in a second. First, let's talk about Miyagikyo. So, Nika, Masataka Takatsuru, who brought distillation to Japan, went and trained in Scotland, ended up working for the company that would become Suntory, Yamazaki, split from them after a decade, went way the heck up to northern Japan and started Yoichi. And then he had this belief, which was, if you are going to blend whiskeys together, which Japan sort of had to do in the early days, everything was either just a single malt or just a grain. There weren't a lot of distilleries to work with. And the way that the corporate works in Japan, if you want to mix varying things to create like a blended scotch, you had to create all the various components that you could blend with. Well, Masataka Takatsuru felt that if you were going to blend, you needed to have different production, different location, different aging, so that you had something else to work with when you were blending, and it wasn't just this homogeneous, a bunch of the same. So he went down farther south and opened up what became Miyagikyo. And I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but it was originally the Sendai, and it still is on Google if you look it up, Sendai Distillery. And that's where the coffee, Coffey, stills are, at this distillery. So if you've had the Nika coffee grain and the Nika coffee malt, that's at the Miyagikyo distillery. And they started making a specific kind of whiskey that they used to blend into Nika products. And so now you can get Yoichi and Miyagikyo as single distilleries, single malts. These are the no age statement versions. There were age statement versions out there, but time and things and popularity and product availability. So what I like about this one is it's softer and sort of mustier, but it's not heavily smoky. I love Yoichi, and Yoichi's, yeah, anyway, but we're talking about Miyagikyo. I like that this has this really nice, not quite Speyside-y, but lower Highlandy floral note in Scotland. Like it reminds me a little bit of Deanston. And it's got the caramel, and it's got the butterscotch, and it's got that really great fruit, pear, but it's also got this sort of garden floral and earthy note to it. It's beautiful, delicate nose. Those stills, by the way, the coffee stills, they weren't moved to this place until like 1999. So it's only been 25 years that they've been there. All right, let's try. There's a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of ashiness to the aftertaste on this one. It's a little thinner than I prefer, but it does have that slight floral before it kind of becomes a little bit like vanilla ash. And it's really nice though. Second sip, the sweetness comes forward a little bit more. And then we're gonna let it sit a bit. I am actually, even though this is 45, I am gonna add a little water to this one. Okay, so when you encounter two profound truths and they conflict, it is the action of a small mind to pick the one you prefer and then hunker down and throw rocks at the other side and try to deny that the other truth is actually a truth. And this is why so much of public discourse right now feels like a permanent loop of arguing, because both sides have lost the ability to compromise in the world today. And so instead of acknowledging that the other side actually has a pretty valid point, but you just think this is the right call in the moment, you don't want to give them any wins. And so you just refuse to acknowledge even the most fundamental truth that they have found, because if you let them win there, then you lose ground, like it's some sort of pieces of a pie. And you'll find this happening in the end stages of a relationship that's coming apart too. You feel like giving any ground is losing. And instead of acknowledging that, you know, that one thing you said is, you're right, I was wrong in that aspect, but if I give there, then I'm going to have to give in all the things you said that I think are actually crappy. And so you start going, but the marker of a strong mind and really the magic in life is to hold on to both conflicting truths and live in the painful tension that creates. And I've not always done it, and I'm not necessarily naturally good at it. That's also, by the way, if you have positive and negative nodes, that's where electricity comes from. You don't get more electricity by grabbing with both hands onto the negative node and holding extra tight. You get it by having one hand on negative and one hand on positive. And that's how you get current and flow. That's also called electric chair, so maybe don't recommend it. but it's an analogy, and analogies break at certain points. The tension and the pain of life is to live in the world where both truths can exist and try to find when to lean one way and when to lean the other. And it sucks, and it's painful, and it's hard, but it's the only life worth living. So I hope that you're able to pull it off. Water did not change this much at all. It got a little spicier. I like it without water. Drink this one without water. Cheers to you. I'm really glad you're here.